I'm Dan Drake. This is Front Up on Visitor Network TV. Our guest is LindaSimmons, the pastor of the Unitarian Church. Linda, welcome.
Thank you.
It's been very nice to have you with us.
So nice to be here.
You've been on the island for about how long now?
About 1 year. August 1st will be the 1 year anniversary.
And where did you come from?
Well, my husband and I were living in Medford, Mass for 4 years before we came here while I was going to Harvard Divinity School. And I only graduated last May, 2013.
Great.
Not my first career, as you can.
Congratulations. What was your first career?
I worked in education for about 15 years. I worked with at-risk youth that had dropped out of high school and helped them get GEDs and jobs and re-enter the world, and also youth that were at risk of dropping out of high school.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, what are your reactions to Nantucket generally since you've been here? Did you know Nantucket at all before?
No, not at all. I had never been here. My husband, who just retired from being an architectural photographer, had been on Nantucket a few times photographing houses, but I had never been until the interview process brought me out twice before. Yes.
And so, how have you reacted? How have you felt about it?
I must say it's a love affair so far.
Well, that's good.
It was the only wild card. I knew I was ready to be a minister. I knew that I fell in love immediately with the congregation and with the church, and I didn't know how I would feel living in the middle of the sea. So I have just loved it. I feel accepted and embraced and welcomed. It's a very small community, which has its benefits and its cautions, of course. And I find that living in a small community has just been wonderful. It's felt good to be known easily. When you meet one person, you meet 20, more or less, or sometimes more. It's felt good when people are in need to see that others are can reach out to them. It's I've enjoyed it very much, and my husband too.
Has he found something to do?
Yes, many things to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not hard.
It's not hard. He volunteers on the South Church Preservation Fund, which is a nonprofit that keeps the church looking beautiful and maintained. He is a wheeler. There's a program out at our island home where there's a wheelchair.
Darcy Creech's program.
On the front of bicycles, so he does that. He started a drum circle. He drums out at Cisco Brewery. Yes.
So he's busy too.
He's busy, yes, he's busy, yeah.
From the standpoint of being a clergy person,
yes.
What is your reaction to Nantucket? The good things, the bad, sort of what are your impressions?
Well, I'm on the Interfaith Council. I'm a secretary on the Interfaith Council. I'm on the ASAP board, the Alliance for Substance
Abuse Prevention. Yeah.
Substance Abuse Prevention. I'm on the Behavioral Health Task Force, which is run by Bonnie Kessler at the hospital. Let's see, and I'm the spiritual advisor for the palliative and supportive care here on island. So I've had the opportunity to sit in many places and hear many things. And from where I stand, I'm very new here. So I've only a year in. I've been on these boards from 5 to months or so.
But it's useful to have a new and fresh perspective on some of these things too.
So from all of those different perspectives that these different boards have given me a window into, I can only say at this time that I am so really deeply impressed by the amount of people on the island who have full-time jobs and sit on 2 or 3 boards, or have part-time jobs and sit on more boards. And their commitment to social services on this island, for me, has been very, very moving. I don't know enough to be a critic. I only know that there are, of course, needs on the island, which isn't a surprise. It's like everywhere else in the world.
Why don't we talk a little bit about what Unitarianism is?
Sure.
And what its appeal is. It obviously is a very, as you say, vibrant community on the island. How does it differ from other churches in terms of its beliefs? I don't want to stigmatize it or characterize it by using any adjectives. So why don't you make the
I'd be happy to. It's a big question even for us as Unitarian Universalists. So Unitarian Universalists, we have no creed. So we have no sacred text. We consider all texts sacred, all sacred texts as sacred. We hold them as interesting and worthy texts. We we follow 7 principles and 6 sources. Our principles are what hold us really together. They are, shall I list them for you?
Sure.
If I can remember them all. The inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth, use of the democratic principle, belief in world community and justice, equity, and compassion for all, and the inherent worth and dignity of all people, all things. I already said that. The interconnectedness of all things. I think that was.
I think that was 7.
I think that was 7. It might be 6, but I think I got them all. So those are the core of what holds us. So we have no book. We have no sacred. We have no beliefs that we hold as sacred. We have atheists and humanists and Hindus and Buddhists.
Do you consider yourselves Christians?
Not anymore. Our history very much is Protestant and Christian. The Unitarians in history were the people who were those who troubled the system, I should say. And I like to believe we're still doing that. They were Christians who didn't believe in the Trinity. Unitarianism means not belief in the Trinity, just in one God. So they very early on were people who were persecuted and were in alliance with others who were persecuted in that time, in the 1500s onward. And the Universalists believed that God was too good to damn others, that all people were saved and were worthy of being saved. So they, in this country, came from the Baptists primarily. So yes, our roots are Christian, but many people are no longer Christian or identify as Christian in the community, in the congregation. We all consider, most of us consider Jesus to be a man and a teacher and a prophet, but not the Son of God. Yeah.
So you believe in, as you said, the one God, but not in the Trinity.
Not everyone believes in God. As I said, we have atheists and humanists in the congregation. So humanists would say that they believe in the goodness of humanity. So it's interesting to prepare a sermon.
I'm sure it is.
With that many beliefs in the congregation. So this is what I would say holds us together. That we have faith in each other, that we have faith in the goodness of humanity, that we have faith that the world is worth saving, and that we believe in doing our part to save it. And that justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, encouragement to spiritual growth, whatever that is. Now, spiritual is a big word, and many people define it differently. So we listen to each other. It's not easy to be part of a community with so many different orientations to what is holy or sacred, or no belief in the holy or the sacred.
I'm interested in how Harvard prepares somebody for this kind of ministry.
Yes.
Do they?
Yes,
They
quite
really
well.
do.
Yes. Dr. Dan McCannon, who was just here preaching at the church, his sermon was called A Good Word for Magic. He's the Unitarian Universalist Ralph Waldo Emerson chair. It's a longer description, but he's the chair at Harvard Divinity School. So Harvard is a very multi-religious community.
Eclectic?
There are Buddhists, there are people studying African religions, there's Hindus and Muslims and Christians and Unitarian Universalists. It's a very, very interfaith campus, which is why I went there and why I enjoyed it. And the roots of Harvard Divinity School are Unitarian.
Really?
Yes, very much so. So we have that history that we share with Harvard Divinity School. And Harvard is a piece of what the Unitarian Universalist Association needs from its ministers. And they also needed that I did a chaplaincy, which I did at Brigham and Women's Hospital, that I had a 2-year part-time internship, which I did in First Church in Boston. I also worked at First Religious Society in Carlisle. There's a lot of books that Harvard doesn't require that they ask you to read and check off that you have read. And Harvard has great classes in Unitarian and Universalist and Unitarian Universalist. These became one religion in 1961, but they had separate roots before then. So we study history and polity, which means how we govern ourselves. We govern by congregational polity, which means that the congregation owns and runs the church and the building and the faith formation. So it's a different than, of course, the Catholics, which have a lot of hierarchy.
But similar in a way to the Quakers.
Similar,
Yeah.
yes.
From a governance standpoint.
True, and to the Jews.
Right.
Yes, very similar. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes. So I think what holds us together is our sense that when we come together, that there's something between us that is larger than each of us individually, and that we have something to give.
What's the challenge of keeping a congregation of this sort going?
Well, keeping a congregation of any sort going in this day is not easy. The challenge in keeping a Unitarian Universalist congregation going is very few people know who we are and what we do. Very few people have a real clear understanding. And I think that is, confusion is never something that draws people to something. So just to make sure that our doors are open every day, South Church Preservation Fund has a docenting program, and they allow people to come in and see the building, which is beautiful, stunning Trompe l'oeil paintings in the upstairs sanctuary, and the light is just gorgeous. And we have newsletters, and we have, moments like this, and articles that happen in the paper from time to time. Evangelizing is not something as Unitarian Universalists that we're real comfortable with. We really have a strong sense that what people believe is not what matters as much as what people do. So to draw people towards a Unitarian ideology is really outside of what we believe is necessary.
So it is a challenge.
Good. It is a challenge. It is a
more
challenge.
Than some other
and when people, I must say, when people come in and have a Sunday experience with Diane Lehman is our music director, and she's an incredible, gifted, talented, lovely person. And the choir is incredible, and the sermons, I think, are pretty good. And, I just did eco-theology last week. What does it mean that the climate is changing around us, and that our oceans are eroding, our beaches are eroding, and what does that mean to us here on Nantucket and in the world, and how do we interface with that? And what is being asked of us as human beings? Is it time for us to start looking at how we're living together? We were just at General Assembly, which is a big gathering of Unitarian Universalists from all over the world once a year. And Sister Simone Campbell was our Ware lecturer. There's a Ware lecture every year where someone from outside Unitarian Universalists comes and speaks. And she said, individualism is the great lie. It's we the people in our Constitution. That's the thing that we need to focus on, and that when we come together, it's then that we create vision and we can change the world.
It's certainly true in the political environment, isn't it?
It's true.
Yeah, it is.
So I think that's something that we hold true among us. That when we come together as people of good intention, that we can create vision and change each other and the world.
What are your hopes for the immediate future, for the next year or so, in terms of what you can accomplish, and what goals have you set for yourself?
To keep growing as a person, and to keep opening my heart, to keep learning and reading and listening. I think listening is a much overlooked activity that's very important, especially when one enters a new community. So to keep listening and to keep asking questions. I would love to see the church grow a little bit, so I'm hoping that as people come and check us out, that they stay and become part of our vibrant and loving and intellectually questioning and doubting community. I think doubt is a religious act, and an important religious act, and one we practice well. I hope to keep becoming a more integral part of the community and meeting people. Those are my hopes.
Great. Well, thank you, Linda Simmons, for being with us today.
Thank you. My pleasure.